from the beginning and just get to know you a little bit better than, you know what I'm saying, maybe you haven't talked about before, man. You know, so, I mean, I think everybody knows you're from Harlem, man. So what was it like for you growing up in Harlem?
Harlem was cool. Harlem was like a playground. We spent more time outside than we did inside.
Okay. You know, growing up, man, you know, was it, you know, what was your family life like?
I had a good family. My mom's had me at a young age, so I had a lot of family that took care of me. I was able to have a lot of love between my aunt Viola, who raised me on the east side of Harlem since like the age of 6. And then I spent my later years on the west side of Harlem by the age of 13. In between there, I was going to school back and forth from the Bronx.
Okay. Now, you know, what type of student were you growing up?
I thought we would just kind of take it back from the beginning and get to know you a little bit better. Maybe talk about things you haven't spoken about before. I think everybody knows you're from Harlem, so what was it like for you growing up there? Harlem was cool. Harlem was like a playground. We spent more time outside than we did inside. Okay. Growing up, what was your family life like? I had a good family. My mom had me at a young age, so I had a lot of family that took care of me. I was able to have a lot of love. My Aunt Viola raised me on the east side of Harlem from the age of 6. Then, by the age of 13, I spent my later years on the west side of Harlem. In between that, I was going back and forth to school in the Bronx. Okay, now, what type of student were you growing up? I was extremely smart, but also extremely bad. We used grades as a way to get new sneakers and stuff like that. So, as much as I was bad, I knew I had to get good grades so I could stay fresh back in the day. That's some old school stuff. Good grades, new sneakers, new clothes. Okay, now, I've seen you talk before about having friends who were big in the crack era. What was that like in Harlem during that time? How bad was it? The crack era, for me, it started in the Bronx, as much as I can remember. Maybe around the age of 5 or 6, like 1982, 1981, 1983, something like that. After that, it just kept getting worse and worse until there was no way around it. And traveling back and forth to Harlem, it was the same thing, just in a different landscape. I mean, there are buildings all over New York, but the Bronx, Harlem, Brooklyn, and Queens all have different landscapes. But everywhere you went, there was crack all over. Crack, crack, crack. Damn. How did it affect you growing up personally? They got this word called trauma that they weren't using back in the day. So, I guess my childhood was filled with a lot of trauma. But for us, the trauma was pretty much good times. There was a lot of stuff going on, but we always found some joy inside the ghetto, inside the hood. We always figured out something fun to do. Okay, now, growing up, did you ever get in trouble? Did you get kicked out of school or anything like that? I got into all types of trouble. I got kicked out of Catholic school as a senior. Me and Zeke actually got kicked out on the same day from Cardinal Hayes. Can you talk about what happened? Just being too bad, me and Zeke were doing everything under the sun in high school. From roughing kids up to credit card schemes, selling all types of fruit snacks, anything you can imagine. High school was our little racket. We did so much that they couldn't put their finger on it. It was just too much for them in the end. They were like, we can't take it no more. We were good at what we did, total opposite of what these kids are doing now. Seems like everything they do, they put on the gram for everybody to see. But we knew the object of doing anything illegal was to get away with it. Yeah, they do be putting everything on the internet nowadays. It's kind of crazy. Did you say you went to Catholic school? Yeah, my whole life. I wouldn't have expected that. Yeah, I went to private kindergarten. Then from 1st grade to 12th grade, I was in Catholic school. I went to St. Anne's in Harlem, and then Cardinal Hayes in the South Bronx. Was it strict? I went to Catholic school up until 2nd grade, and it was horrible. Most people probably would say it was strict, but I always figured out ways to bend the rules. Ferris Bueller's Day Off was my favorite movie, so that was my era. I thought I was young Ferris Bueller in school. You couldn't tell me I wasn't. I was pulling off some Ferris Bueller type stuff. Word. Okay, now, you get kicked out of high school. What do you do with yourself? Did you ever try to get a regular job? Yeah, I had a regular job before I got kicked out. I got kicked out in 12th grade, but I still got my diploma. I come from a Caribbean family. If you know anything about Caribbean people, they don't play about that. You got to finish school. This was the 90s, everything was different. School was very important. I went to Julia Richmond, probably one of the worst schools in the city at that time, to finish up my high school. I was blessed to have enough credits from Catholic school to graduate. When I got to Richmond, Lord knows I didn't go to class. I think I went for about 4 days until I saw one of my friends. I remember them slapping my books out of my hands, karate style, and taking me to the lunchroom like, "Man, this is where we at." And that was it. Were you already rapping at this time? Nah, I didn't learn how to rap until way later. Any rapping I was doing was just me and Zeke imitating what we saw on TV, beatboxing, freestyling, walking through the high school hallways. But as far as taking rap seriously or writing anything down, that didn't happen until later. At what point did you meet Cameron and everybody? That was early, that was like East Side, young age, pre-teen, something like that. Now, going back and forth between the Bronx and Harlem, did you go back and forth for school too, or did you just go to school in Harlem? I went to school in Harlem. I lived across the street from my elementary school. I stayed with my Aunt Viola during the week, and on the weekends, I would go back home to my mom and grandmother in the Bronx. What were things like for you after high school? Things were fun. It was high school. Everything was still fun. I was young, having fun, figuring it out, hustling, and having fun. Okay, now, was the rapping taking off yet? Was Mardollery and all that happening, or were they still coming up? I'm not about to sit here and do a discography, my brother. That's a little too much for me, and you ain't paying enough for that. If you got some other questions, ask them. Or I can erase all this and send your money back, either or. I mean, I understand what's going on. People want to know the history, but this ain't the way. You're not going to get the whole Jim Jones story for what you paid. I thought these were just some regular questions, but it seems like you're trying to get everything from the beginning up to now, and that's not happening. So if you got something else you want to ask it now and get it off your chest. But I ain't going through this whole timeline with you, 'cause you don't have enough money for that, no disrespect. Okay. I mean, I could do a more regular interview. I definitely planned to ask about the Cameron drama. Is that okay or not? You can ask what you want, but I'm just telling you, you think I'm going through the timeline of my life with you? It's not happening, my brother. You're going all the way back to high school. I respect it, and I understand your job as a journalist, but you ain't got enough coin for that. So, what else do you want to know? The headlines were buzzing with excitement when news broke that Jim Jones and his longtime partner, Chrissy Lampkin, had welcomed a baby into the world. Fans of love and hip-hop couldn't believe it. After years of speculation, ups and downs in their tumultuous relationship, Jim and Chrissy had finally taken the leap into parenthood. The couple had been through it all, highs, lows, and everything in between, but this felt like a fresh new chapter. It was a chance for them to build a family together, away from the drama and cameras that had defined so much of their past. For Chrissy, this was the culmination of everything she had wanted. She had stood by Jim for years, through an engagement that never quite turned into marriage and through the challenges that came with being in the public eye. But now, with the birth of their child, Chrissy felt a renewed sense of purpose. It wasn't just about being Jim's girlfriend or fiancée anymore, she was now a mother. This baby was a symbol of their love and commitment, a future they could finally build without the distractions of the past. However, just as quickly as the joy of the baby's arrival filled the air, the whispers began. The questions started to surface almost immediately. Was this truly the happy ending it appeared to be, or was there more to the story? Rumors about Jim Jones and his supposed marriage to fellow love and hip-hop star Brooke Valentine had been swirling for months, fueled by strange behavior and odd social media posts. The question was simple. Had Jim really married Chrissy, or was the entire thing just a carefully orchestrated plot to cover up a much deeper secret? It all began when Jim, in his usual flashy way, posted a photo of himself with Chrissy, his arm around her as they cradled their newborn. The image was beautiful, an encapsulation of what they had been through to get to this point. But something seemed off. In the midst of celebrating the birth of his child, Jim's past came back to haunt him, and it wasn't long before social media exploded with chatter. On one side, there were fans and followers who were genuinely happy for Jim and Chrissy, cheering them on and praising their journey to parenthood. But then there were the skeptics, the ones who had been watching Jim's every move. These were the fans who had noticed his behavior and started piecing things together. Back in the months before Chris's pregnancy, Jim had been linked to another woman, Brooke Valentine, a singer and love and hip-hop star who had appeared on the show as part of the extended drama. The rumors about Jim and Brooke's supposed marriage had started as a subtle murmur, with some tabloids hinting that Jim had secretly married her before ultimately returning to Chrissy. But as time went on, these rumors began to feel more like the truth. In fact, several cryptic Instagram posts from Brooke herself raised even more eyebrows. One post featured a ring on her finger, and though she never directly stated anything about a marriage, the implication was clear. Jim's followers began questioning whether he had been keeping up the illusion of a solid relationship with Chrissy while secretly tying the knot with Brooke. The public couldn't help but wonder, had Jim Jones faked his marriage to Chrissy to keep up appearances, all while playing the role of the committed partner to Chrissy and the mysterious husband to Brooke? Chrissy, as always, was not one to stay silent for long. She had weathered plenty of drama in the past, but now she was faced with something even more intense. She wasn't going to sit back and let Jim's possible double life unravel without taking charge of the narrative. In a sit-down with producers, Chrissy opened up about how she had been dealing with the rumors. "I've been with Jim for years. We've been through so much. He's my partner, and this baby is our future," she explained, her voice tinged with a mix of anger and hurt. "If there's something else going on, he needs to own up to it. But I'm not playing these games. I've been patient, and I'm done waiting for any more lies to come out." It was clear that Chris's patience had worn thin. She had dealt with the public questioning her relationship for years, but the rumors about Jim and Brooke felt different. They were threatening everything Chrissy had built with Jim, and she wasn't about to let it slip away without answers. As the weeks passed, Jim, typically tight-lipped about his personal life, became more defensive. His posts on social media grew more cryptic and sporadic, as though he were trying to divert attention from the growing speculation. But the more he pulled away, the more the public pushed back. The story took another turn when an insider close to the Love and Hip Hop cast revealed that Jim had, in fact, been married to Brooke at one point. While the specifics of the union were unclear, was it a legal marriage, a symbolic gesture, or something in between, it was confirmed that Jim and Brooke had been more than just casual lovers. The timing was especially curious, as it overlapped with the period when Jim was still publicly pursuing his relationship with Chrissy. The revelation set off an even bigger storm. Fans were divided. Some were outraged by Jim's apparent dishonesty, accusing him of playing both women for fools. Others sympathized with him, citing the pressures of being in the spotlight and the complexity of his personal life. But for Chrissy, the truth was all that mattered. As she took to social media to express her frustration, she made it clear that she wasn't going to tolerate being anyone's second choice. "I've been loyal to Jim. I've stood by his side through thick and thin," she posted. "If there's more to this story, I expect him to tell me the truth. I'm not here for the games anymore." The tension between Chrissy and Jim was palpable. Would Jim come clean about his past and solidify his future with Chrissy, or was this the beginning of the end for their relationship? As their story continued to unfold, one thing was clear: the drama surrounding Jim Jones, Chrissy Lampkin, and Brooke Valentine was far from over. The world would be watching, waiting for Jim to face the music and reveal where his loyalties truly lay. In the end, whether Jim had faked his marriage to Brooke or not, one thing was undeniable: this was no longer just about a celebrity baby or relationship. It was about trust, betrayal, and the hard truths that had to be confronted for these stars to move forward. And for Jim and Chrissy, the clock was ticking.